Hi, I'm Nina Melendez, and welcome to LinkedIn News Live, a show about the world of work and our place in it. Today, we're talking about the metaverse. It is a word that has become somewhat ubiquitous in the past few months, although in certain circles, the word has been around for decades. It went from being a concept of science fiction to a real thing that people are spending real money on. Nike and Walmart are just a few brands that have expressed interest in participating in the metaverse. And Microsoft, LinkedIn's parent company, recently bought Activision Blizzard for $70 billion, framing the purchase as an effort to establish itself in the metaverse. So what is it, and why should you care? Joining me now is Cathy Hackl. She is the Chief Metaverse Officer at Futures Intelligence Group, an agency that helps brands create long-term strategies for the future of the internet. She's also host of the Metaverse Marketing Podcast on Adweek. She's an alumna of the University of Texas at Austin and Florida International University. And she's currently at the Harvard Kennedy School completing a public policy program focusing on AI and AR. So essentially, Cathy, you're very busy.
I would say so. I'm busier over the last couple of months with the metaverse just exploding,
going everywhere. So we're so happy to have you, and thank you for carving out time for us. Let's talk about it. The metaverse, what is it, and why, to your point, is it exploding all of a sudden right now?
Yeah, so it's been coming for a long time. Like you said, the term comes from a sci-fi novel. So I actually worked at Magic Leap at one point, and Neil Stephenson was our chief futurist. He's the person that first coined the term metaverse in Snow Crash. But yeah, it's a term that's been around for a while. Now it's become from sci-fi into reality and business, which I think is interesting. I do want to say to everyone watching this, if you are new to this concept, don't feel bad. It is very nascent. And just because you see it all over the news doesn't mean that, that you're late to the game. It's very nascent. So much so that every morning, Nina, I go to the Merriam-Webster dictionary and I type in the word metaverse. And right before we went live, I typed in the word metaverse. It says this word is not in the dictionary. Okay. So that's how early we are right now. So, easier way to define it, the way I try to explain it to people so the concept is easier to wrap around. It's the metaverse makes our world into a combined experience of virtual and real or physical. So in other words, it's about shared virtual experiences that can happen in the physical world and also in virtual worlds, whether it's VR or gaming platforms. So you have to kind of almost think about it as your digital lifestyle that you've been living on phones and computers, slowly catching up to your physical life. So that convergence of physical and digital. Another way I allow people to kind of get comfortable with the term is explain where we've been, and where we're going. So Web 1.0, connected information that gave us the internet, right? That changed a lot of things. LinkedIn wouldn't be here, right, if it weren't for that. Web 2.0 connected people, and that gave us social media, the sharing economy, e-commerce, all these sorts of things. We're in the evolution, once again, of the web into Web 3.0, right? So Web 2.0 is starting to evolve into Web 3.0. And many people hear the term Web 3.0 and think blockchain, right? But it is, in essence, Web 3.0 is about connecting people, places, and things, or people, spaces, and assets. And sometimes these can be in virtual spaces and sometimes in the physical world. So yeah, I mean, it is the agreed upon thing for everyone that talks metaverse. It is the successor state to today's mobile internet. And that's kind of where we're heading. Nina, I almost say it's, we're on a high-speed train destination metaverse. We don't know when we get there. We don't know the stops, but that's where we're heading.
So first of all, I do thank you, Cathy, because I'm one of those people you're talking to who have no idea what the metaverse is. So for anyone who has questions, please feel free to put them up. There is no dumb question on this topic. It's super new. It's not even in the dictionary, like Cathy was saying. So to that point, how does the average person participate in this metaverse? How do we get in on it?
Yeah, so I think most people are already participating. They just don't realize that they are, right? So the metaverse, as I explained, it actually isn't, it's not one technology and it's not one company, which is really important. So there are many technologies that enable the greater metaverse that we're building towards. So this early stage of the metaverse is, kind of what we're experiencing right now, whether it is playing Roblox or Fortnite. And I'm not saying that those platforms are the metaverse, but I think that they're parts of the metaverse. Or whether it is someone using, virtual try-on to see how a pair of glasses looks or makeup. There's many different levels and many different technologies that enable the metaverse, right? So we're already participating in it. We just don't necessarily realize that we are. But yeah, no, anyone that's buying NFTs, for example, is participating in a part of it. So yeah, when I talk about the metaverse, I think about the many different enabling technologies. So virtual reality, augmented reality, gaming, AI, robotics, 5G, cloud computing. There are many different technologies that are important for enabling this metaverse. And Nina, I think it's important to mention also that when I say the metaverse, it's almost like you have to think about it like capital M metaverse, right? So anyone that's in the New York area, the greater tri-state area, it's 3 places in one. You almost have to think about when I say the metaverse, it's the greater metaverse, capital M. But within that greater metaverse, there are metaverse platforms, metaverses, maybe lowercase m. That's debatable on terminology. Meta worlds. I mean, we're still defining the words we're going to use to describe this. But yeah, that metaverse capital M is not here yet. We're building it right now. And there are these metaverse platforms, lowercase m, that you're already engaging with, and these technologies that you're already being a part of.
So if I've got like Clue, the game, the Clue, right, on my phone, and I'm playing it, and I want to upgrade to an avatar that's, $5 for a Colonel Mustard, what is that? Me doing that? Is that me participating to a degree in the metaverse?
It is. It's you're taking your first steps, right? Because what you're essentially doing is virtual to virtual commerce, right? So a lot of the work I do with companies is around new business models, right? So, for centuries, we've been doing physical to physical commerce, where we go to a store and get a physical item. That led to e-commerce. But, the e-commerce experience, it's not that great. There's not that much serendipity. You're just on a website. But for decades, gamers have been doing virtual to virtual commerce, where they buy a virtual item that only exists in that virtual space, right? And they usually pay some type of virtual currency inside the game. Like Fortnite has V-Bucks, Roblox has Robux. And that's obviously evolved also with blockchain and being able to buy NFTs and NFTs inside games. But yeah, people that have been doing this have been participating in those initial steps towards the metaverse. You almost have to think about it this way, and I talk a lot about what's called direct to avatar. So when I am buying something for my avatar, a virtual asset, direct to avatar in some ways is slowly starting to become a new direct to consumer model. It's not the only way we'll do business in the metaverse, but it's kind of those sorts of things that we're starting to see. So when you mentioned, for example, Activision, like such an important and historical watershed acquisition in gaming, but always leading towards the metaverse and thinking about these new ways of customer journeys and how we, where we'll shop, how we'll shop, what will we buy. It's all evolving. So yeah, anyone that's participating in some type of game, you are taking your first steps going into that, into that future that we're heading into.
Well, so Nike, how they're participating is, right, they're getting virtual sneakers that your avatar can wear, Air Jordans that cost real money and that you can exchange on in the metaverse. So that's one way companies can get involved. What are some other ways that companies can take advantage of this and become involved in the metaverse or become metaverse ready?
Yeah, so I think, to me, gaming is the on-ramp to the metaverse or the parent to the metaverse or something. So, the companies that I work with, we work across multiple things. Some of them are virtual goods, so those things that you buy in-game. Sometimes it's a virtual fashion. So, once again, it is a virtual good, virtual worlds, NFTs. I mean, what are the first steps you can do? The first steps you can do, buy, if someone here is listening and they've never played Roblox or Fortnite, go in and play with your kids and buy an item. And you'll kind of understand, okay, what is going on? What are we buying here? Right? Because it is a lot about digital ownership of digital assets. And eventually that'll change into ownership of virtual items that might have a physical component. But yeah, there's little things you can do. I mean, a lot of activities also happening and a lot of culture is being created in these gaming platforms. So playing with your kids, even joining a Discord server, for a brand or a company you might be interested. Like Gucci, for example, has a Discord that's really interesting. If you do join Discord, no, it's a whole new world. Don't click on links or private DMs, just don't do that. But go and listen, right? Spend some time listening. Things as simple as well as like having a MetaMask crypto wallet, just the experience of having an open one and having one that you might be able to use. I mean, so there are things that you can do that are relatively free, or those sorts of things. Even going and creating a lens and lens studio from Snapchat. Those tools are free. So yeah, there's many little things you can start to do, without having to hire necessarily someone like me that, I work with big brands and making big important strategies. But yeah, I recognize that not everyone is there, and that everyone can start to take little steps in some ways.
You mentioned crypto, and I do want to get to that because and NFTs. I'm going to say hi to some of the folks who are joining us right now on the stream. We have from all over the world: Kimberly from Louisiana, Ingrid from Egypt, Alfonso from Texas, and Caroline from New York. And I actually have a question from Monica. Monica asks, can you clarify, Cathy, how this is different from early runs, like at this Second Life?
Yeah.
Is that a question you can answer?
Yeah, definitely. And I do see some questions in the comments as well. So when I talk about the definition, I talk about Merriam-Webster dictionary, like an actual dictionary. Metaverse is definitely in Wikipedia, but it's not in the dictionary like Merriam-Webster. So what I would say, Second Life was really early. And if you talk to Philip Rosedale, who I know, he's the creator of Second Life, it was really early, right? I don't think we had as many people on the internet. There was commerce though, and there's still commerce in Second Life. So they're definitely a pioneer in what I call those glimpses of the metaverse. It was just really early in reality. It was really early. I think the big difference now is that you have millions of people inside these gaming platforms. You've got, for example, my children who are, all under 11. That's where they socialize. That's where they spend their time. Like if my son, for example, just had a birthday party, and his birthday, and he we asked, what do you want? And he wanted something related to gaming, or he wanted Robux. He wanted a digital currency. So anyone that can see kind of from a generational perspective and a connectivity perspective, things are shifting, right? There's a lot more people doing mobile gaming, console, and a whole bunch of different things, right? And we talk about, and even AR, right? There's a lot more people using virtual try-on than they were, obviously, when Second Life took off. So it is a little bit of a change in connectivity, in things you can do, an explosion of access to gaming, access to these technologies on our phones. And just generationally, I think it is a little bit different as well. But Second Life is still around, and Philip Rosedale, the creator, is still working on reviving that in some ways. I was reading the other day. So yeah.
So let's get back to the NFTs that you had mentioned earlier, non-fungible tokens. What role do NFTs play then in the metaverse?
Yeah. So with non-fungible tokens, and I see some comments here, obviously there is an environmental impact depending on the blockchain you're minting. But in general, if we kind of zoom out from that, non-fungible tokens, basically what they're doing is the following. So if you have $1 and I have $1, right? And we are anywhere in the world and you give me that $1, it's worth the same. That's fungible. When it's non-fungible, it means that even though we might have something that looks similar, it's got different value, right? Because the value has been assigned differently. In this case, we're talking about digital ownership of digital assets that is tracked on the blockchain in the form of an NFT. So it's almost like a new investment vehicle, a new deed, let's say, to something that you own, right? Because the way I explain it to people is in the Web 2.0 era, that Web 2.0 that I mentioned, you could own a domain. Yeah, you could go to GoDaddy or wherever, or, Google or wherever it is that you buy your domains, and you could buy a domain, right? But you didn't own your Twitter handle, or you didn't own your Facebook page. Like you didn't really own that per se. But with non-fungible tokens, you're starting to be able to own some of these elements depending on what it is that you're buying, and that is tracked on the blockchain, which is a public ledger. So there is an element of being able to own a digital asset that we didn't have before. And that obviously leads us into virtual real estate, which I know you also want to talk about. But yeah, non-fungible tokens are evolving. There is a lot of hype around them. So I will caution that. And I'm not saying go run and get NFTs. Like that's a personal decision. But I do think that there is a lot happening in that space that makes it really interesting. And you see a lot of companies and brands starting to figure out, what does this really mean? What does an NFT mean for my company? And there's been very successful campaigns with NFTs.
Cathy, you have a fan in the stream, Sierra Reed, saying that this is the best explanation of NFTs that she's heard thus far. So thank you for that. When you talk about purchasing and the exchange of goods, sounds like there's a marketplace. Sounds like there could be industry there. What industries do you see growing in the metaverse, or what industries are currently growing in the metaverse?
Yeah, so I mean, fashion. I'm kind of known for the work I do with fashion labels and luxury, and but I work with many different companies. But fashion's definitely been an early mover, first mover, right? With a lot of the luxury brands doing amazing work, and I've worked with Clinique, for example, on their Meta Optimist NFT. I've worked with Procter and Gamble on a virtual world that they released during CS. So fashion and beauty are definitely at the forefront. Virtual real estate, like we mentioned, there's a bit of a change and a shift happening there in thinking, and people are like, well, the question I get asked is like, well, virtual real estate, how does that even make sense, right? Isn't virtual real estate in the virtual space infinite? And I say, well, theoretically, yes, it is infinite, right? But each platform will define how much of each platform they're going to have, or they're going to be able to build, right? So the analogy I give people here is when they start to wrap their heads around that, what does it even make sense? It's like, well, look at it. It's potentially an opportunity to own part of the future of the internet. Once again, going back to like, what could you own in Web 2? What can you own in Web 3? Right? And example, I always go back to the domain example because that's something people can wrap their heads around. I can go to GoDaddy or Google or whatever to buy a domain, and I can type LinkedIn. Like, in essence, there's an infinite number of domain and domain combinations, etc. But there's only one LinkedIn.com, right? So it's the same concept when you start to think about virtual real estate. In essence, there could be infinite amount of virtual real estate, but there's only going to be one of X, right? So you have to kind of like start to wrap your head around that idea of scarcity in these virtual spaces. So yeah, it's easy.
So I was going to ask you, Cathy, actually, what dictates the value of real estate in the metaverse? And so would scarcity then be one of them, for example?
It is scarcity. The platforms will decide how much they have. Just like in the physical world, I'm going to say location. That sounds funny, but yeah, if you're buying a plot of land near Snoop Dogg, or if you're buying a plot of land near, something that you're really excited about and interested in, there is an element there of location, which platform it is on, which blockchain is it on, all these sorts of things. And when I think about the future, there's two elements happening here. So there's a centralized aspect to it, which is what we have been doing for a very long time in Web 2. Centralized means that it is controlled by a specific platform. And then there's an open and decentralized aspect to it, where there is no middleman, right? Where people actually own something and it's theirs. The platform doesn't control those things in the same way they've controlled in Web 2. So you almost have to think about the future kind of going in some ways. I envision it this way, Nina. I envision it. So there's going to be a big component of the open, decentralized world that a lot of people in Web3 are building and are excited about. But there'll probably also be centralized aspects, centralized platforms, or there's the term walled gardens, but there will be centralized aspects that we might want to go to for a specific reason or another, right? So I'm working towards an open, decentralized future, but I do realize that there'll probably be also some centralized aspects, and there might be reasons for me to go into some of these centralized places. So I know that gets a little bit more complicated, a little bit further down the rabbit hole, but I do want to kind of make sure that I brought that up, because it is important when you think about Metaverse Web3, about those conversations around open and decentralized.
So when you say decentralized, a decentralized place you want to go to, the way I'm reading that is, I want to meet my friend who lives in France, and my other friend who lives in Ghana, and we want to meet with our avatars at a place and have lunch in Spain. Like, I don't know if I'm even getting this right.
Yeah.
So would that be like the right way to visualize it, that we're all in different locations physically, but then together our avatars meet in the same place, and we're together in a decentralized location? Is that accurate?
Yes and no. I think the open decentralization of it really means that if I buy an item in virtual Spain, and I'm meeting you in virtual Italy, that I'm able to bring my whatever I bought in virtual Spain with me to virtual Italy, right? So I'm
I
able to
got it.
take things with me, and I'm able
Got
to
it.
port them across the different, like metaverse platforms or decentralized platforms. It is a little, it's a little hard to wrap your head around, but it is about that, right? Whereas right now, for example, if I play Roblox and I have a skin in Roblox, I can't really take it with me to Fortnite, right? Or World of
Right.
Warcraft, or like I can't really port it and take it with
Right.
me to other places.
They're almost like different
Yeah,
worlds,
yeah, they're different
right?
worlds.
It's
But
like if DC
decentralized, you are able
Comics,
to take everything with you.
is it kind of like if DC Comics and Marvel somehow met to, it was like, no, they're different worlds.
That would
They
be
exist in
crazy,
different,
right?
right.
But it's
I,
interesting. This is how to wrap your head around this. Our
yeah,
physical world is open and decentralized in some ways, right?
right.
If I have Nike shoes and I'm going into Adidas or Adidas to buy some shoes, like I don't get stopped at the door and say, "No, sir, no, ma'am, you're wearing Nikes. You can't come into Adidas," right?
Right.
You're able to wear what you're wearing everywhere, and you don't get stopped because you're wearing the wrong label. So yeah, I think it's very, that's a super simplified way of saying it,
Yeah.
but just to wrap your head around it. I do want to point something, a comment someone made is like scarcity is determined by the community and the creator. And I couldn't agree more. In this Web 3.0 world that we're heading into, community, authenticity, creators, those are kings. Those are some of the top things that any company and any brand needs to focus on, and being authentic and community collaboration. Critical. I know the creator economy term is overused and overhyped, but it is really kind of a new era for creativity and technology merging together.
Will the metaverse take the same trajectory as the internet? So, for example, when the internet was first coming about, everyone was like, "Oh, this is who's going to need it? Who's going to use it? People won't have a computer in every home, all that stuff." And now, of course, we can't imagine a world without it. Do you think the metaverse is going to sort of follow that creativity, where one day it will be completely ubiquitous?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like we wake up and it's like, "Oh, the metaverse is here." Like it's just being built as we go. The next 10 years are critical for building the infrastructure, right? That's why gaming acquisitions are really hot. And you're going to continue to see gaming acquisitions this year and IPOs from some of the biggest game companies. So I think we're going to continue to see that. But yeah, it's kind of where we're heading. It's an evolution. If you look at any kid and kind of how they engage with technology, it's really interesting. And for me, it's important to also have people understand that it's not only virtual spaces, right? Right now, we're seeing a lot of it in these virtual spaces, whether it's gaming or some more immersive spaces, but it also encompasses the physical world, right? And I think that's where the giant change will happen. That's where we will feel like the internet is all around us. So, thinking about what comes after the mobile phone, is it potentially a wearable? That is going to unlock a totally different perspective on the metaverse. And I see some comments here about self-sovereign identity and identity in tracking goods in the metaverse and in Web3. And that is very important. There's also components of like, and I know we wanted to get into like some of the negatives, but privacy and data. Right?
I was going to ask you, because when we're talking about the internet, so there's the dark web, and there's that, and there's so much difficulty in regulating that and in policing it. I was going to ask you, how do we regulate the metaverse, and what do we do about this sort of darker aspects that will and maybe have already arisen from the metaverse?
Yeah, I actually have a talk called Dark Metaverse, but that's only like very dystopian. That's like what could go wrong, like really wrong. Right, because we do have to have these conversations. So there is an element of saying like, if Web 3.0 as it is envisioned doesn't really happen, and we continue to have kind of this extraction of data and those sorts of things, then yeah, we're setting ourselves up for something, really bad down the line. But what I say is, I think blockchain doesn't solve everything, but blockchain is going to be a really important part when it comes to owning and managing our data. If I am able to own my data and it's on the blockchain and I know exactly who's using it for what, and I authorize someone to use it for something specifically, but then I'm able to take it back, I think it's a different era. It's an evolution, to be honest. And I think that we're going to see kind of positives and negatives, challenges and opportunities, just like with everything. But I think having the hard conversations right now, right, having those very uncomfortable conversations right now are important. I personally, I live in Washington, D.C. So one of the things I try to do personally is go to Capitol Hill and educate some of the lawmakers on these emerging technologies and the metaverse and what's coming.
That must be the hardest job in the world, Cathy. So kudos to you.
It's fun though, but I see it as a really important task to do because, right, what I don't want to happen is for things to get out of hand and then go back to kind of some of the things that we've experienced, right? There are going to be challenges and there's probably going to be horrible things that we haven't even envisioned, right? But we need to get ahead of those and have those conversations now. So even with avatars, this is something I'm really interested in, is exploring the humanity, human connection to identity and avatars. So this is, just stay with me for a second. So Web 2.0, you had Instagram, for example, or some of the platforms, and I'm not trying to call anyone out, but, that would affect people's self-esteem, right? Because they wanted to reflect an idea of beauty. One thing that I'm seeing with avatars is that there's a certain level of being able to explore one's identity and be fluid in who we are that maybe we didn't have in the Web 2.0 era of photos, right? Because now, and I always joke like this, I can be a purple unicorn in the metaverse if I want to. I'm 5 feet tall, so I'm pretty short, but in the metaverse, I can be 6 feet tall, right? So there are ways that I already see my kids experimenting with how they show up in these spaces, right? And sometimes I don't want to put makeup on and be on a call. And if I can use my avatar and feel more relaxed, that's great. So I think there are a lot of considerations. One thing that I do want to say, Nina, it's important, is for us to understand our bias. You check your bias. That's really important, because I was having a conversation about disability, differently abled people and avatars. And I was like, wouldn't it be great? Because in the metaverse, you can, if you're in a wheelchair, you can walk. And then I had someone check me and they said, look, what if that person's identity as being differently able is part of who they are, and that's what they want to be in the metaverse? And they checked me and I was like, you are 100% right. I am using a specific lens to try to think what these explorations are, but someone's identity might be that, So I think we need to be very careful when we start to think about avatars, how we represent ourselves. What are we exploring here? Because there's such power, right? And such an opportunity as well.
Yeah, it gives us an option to not be so binary or be so confined by reality. And yeah, we could be a unicorn. If I be a purple unicorn, be whatever it is. I want to talk about some of the opportunities now, Cathy. When we thinking about jobs, if we are at the cusp of this booming, metaverse, capital M, what kind of jobs do you see will be plentiful in the next couple of years related to the metaverse?
Well, I think creativity, being able to kind of like share your art, like digital artists are already seeing a huge change, right? It doesn't mean that everyone's making $69 million when they sell an NFT like people, right? But a lot of artists are finding great opportunities, entrepreneurs. I mean, there's so much innovation right now happening in Web3. I personally have benefited from, founding a company and being, very, very successful. I founded my company February 2021, and I'm doing great because there is a need for what I do. So I think opportunities are opening up. It's exciting. And jobs, I mean, simple, like it's silly, but when I say hologram stylist, people are like, oh, come on, seriously? I'm like, no, yes. Like I produce holograms, and it's really hard to style someone because it's very different. So there are going to be things that sound really futuristic, jobs of the future, right? I'm a chief metaverse officer, and I'm helping companies start to figure out how do they set up metaverse capabilities. So metaverse business units, like who do they need to hire? They need to hire gamers, people that can know how to develop worlds, people that are crypto natives. Like there's a whole wave of opportunities that are coming, and not everyone, this is really important, not everyone needs to be super technical. That we will need the technical people and the developers, like that's obvious. We are not going to need all those people. But there's going to be opportunities for everyone in HR and business and finance and law. And that's what excites me, because I want everyone here that, and I know I see there's a lot of debate in the comments, but I want people to feel welcome in this future. Come and build it with us. I am proof of that. I am a Latina woman, and I have been welcomed into this future. And I want people to feel welcome and try to find those opportunities, because it's a really exciting time, right? A really exciting time. And whether we call it metaverse in 10 years or not, I don't know. But, when we start to think about the future of connectivity, this is where we're heading. And I want more people to be involved.
Well, so let's talk about the training for that, for all these different, hologram designer or these different jobs that could be on the metaverse. For what kind of training or education do you think that people are going to need? Or do you think that maybe it's not there yet? Will we start seeing universities that are offering courses on like Metaverse 101 or?
Yeah, so I mean, anything gaming I think is exciting. There are gaming platforms, you can use Unreal or Unity. Some of the gaming platforms have low code, no code, code optional ways of building worlds. I always say in the metaverse, we are all world builders, and now is your time to build. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And building doesn't only mean building in a technological way. You can build community. You can build many things, right? But yeah, education. I mean, you see more universities teaching blockchain courses. I'm the dean of Republic Realm Academy, where we actually classes start this week, and we're trying to teach professionals, executives and professionals about Web3 and metaverse and virtual real estate. So I think you will see kind of a complement in the offerings. And I definitely see more MBA programs like reaching out and being interested in understanding, like, how do we teach the people that are going to be leading businesses today about what's coming? Like, how can they prepare? Because it's not here yet, right? We're building it right now. I have an augmented reality marketing course with LinkedIn Learning. I'm working on a new metaverse and NFTs course with LinkedIn Learning as well. So I think there's going to be all sorts of opportunities and resources in the years to come.
And we should jump on it. Cathy, I hate to wrap up. We've gone over, so it's been, I've just been enthralled, and I didn't even look at the time. So thank you so much for joining. I want to end on a comment from Dave, who says, as an instructional designer, this is so intriguing. And Igu said, this is really good, clearest explanation yet. So sorry for everyone that we didn't get to your questions, but Cathy, thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for letting us pick your brain.
Always a pleasure, and I'll see everyone in the metaverse.
See you in the metaverse. I wonder what my avatar will be. It'll be like me with shorter hair. Anyways, this is Cathy Hackl, Chief Metaverse Officer at Futures Intelligence Group. And again, thank you for everyone who commented. Sorry we couldn't get to everyone's questions and comments. You can continue the conversation here. You can check out some of our other great stories to the right of your feed. Of course, if you're on mobile, you can just click into the search box. On Thursday, my colleague Caroline Fairchild will be chatting with CEO of Clio on how workplaces can be more parent-friendly and what needs to get done in that regard. I'm Nina Melendez. Thanks so much for watching LinkedIn News Live.